So it was about a year and a half ago when my board of directors and I reached when I went to my board of directors and said, you know what, after 20 years of building and running this business, Mindbody, I'm ready to turn the page. I'm ready to hand the baton to another CEO, and I want to move to an executive chairman role. I want to be able to be an evangelist for the industry and go out and advocate for the things that all of us here at the Global Wellness Summit care about. And so I labored for about 9 months on a book that would just capture everything that I had learned and that our team had learned across 20 years of serving more than 100,000 wellness businesses, predominantly fitness, spa, integrative health, salons. And the manuscript I completed and submitted to my editor on March 8th, 2020. And this manuscript was full of principles that are timeless, and we're going to talk about a few of those principles. And the manuscript stood the test of time for approximately 5 days. So that's this book. So no, that's not this book. We met as a team and realized what we need to do is spend the next 90 days rewriting it based upon the realities that have been put forth by COVID-19. So I want to start by saying, first and foremost, what I think most people here understand: wellness is still one of the largest and most important opportunities of our age. This is the opportunity that will pivot humanity either in a direction of greater opportunity, greater quality of life for the generations to come, or have us devolving into some kind of very unhappy dystopian place. So I think this is not only a huge business opportunity, I think that it's essential to our future. And to understand why that is, well, we just have to get down to the foundations of what wellness are, what everybody wants. We all want a body that works and productive for as long as possible. We all need the emotional stability to deal with the stresses of our lives today more than ever. We all want to continually expand our minds and grow. We all want to have meaningful connections and relationships with others. In fact, we're wired for these things by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. We all want to live in environments that look like that incredible video that we just saw. We all want work that doesn't just put food on the table, but also fills our minds and bodies and souls and enables us to expand as human beings. And we all want to have some sense of purpose and meaning. Well, those are, in fact, we all know is what that is, the 7 dimensions of wellness. This is universal, this is timeless, and this has always been the case for humanity. So why is it that this industry feels nascent today? Why is it so new? Well, we talked about this last year in Singapore, didn't we? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What's going on today is that for the first time in human history, basically in the lifetimes of most of us here, the vast majority of human beings now have the ability to get beyond just physiological safety or physiological needs, food, clean water, shelter, safety, and get into those higher level desires, the desire for love and belonging, the desire for esteem, and then the ultimate, as Abraham Maslow said, of self-actualization. This is a very recent phenomenon. It's so important for us to remember. It's either, depending on your generation or your age group, it's either in your lifetime, your parents' lifetime, or your grandparents' lifetime that this has happened. It did not exist. The vast majority of humanity prior to World War II never had this opportunity. And you might go back and say, well, wait a minute, what about the ancient yogis who learned these practices of Ayurveda and so forth? Yeah, you know what? They were either part of a ruling class, the elite, or they were serving the elite. The vast majority of humanity never had time to think about that. So our world, our industry, our society has been severely disrupted by COVID-19, hasn't it? And so the big question now, and the question that after Friday the 13th of March 2020, that I spent about 3 months thinking about and talking with a lot of really insightful people, is what do we think is going to happen now? And it came back to a fundamental truth, and that is, to understand the future, to make any kind of reliable prediction about this future, we must first look back. We must understand the past. And so here's the key insight about the modern wellness movement, all of the modalities that we've been talking about here at this conference. There are 2 things that have fueled the major shifts of this movement. Number 1 has been a generational shift, a new generation coming into the age of where they actually have the time and capacity and motivation and capital to invest in their own wellness. Typically, let's say that happens around the early 30s. In our 20s, we're too busy having fun. We probably don't have a lot of money because we're getting through school and so forth. But it's when we get to our 30s, we start settling down and really getting into the habits that will build a long and healthy lifestyle. And enabled by technological breakthroughs, the confluence of those two things seems to create waves of wellness. And so we're talking about the modern wellness movement that really began in the late 70s and early 80s. It was fueled by, of course, we know, the baby boom generation. They were reaching their 30s around that time. And that's when we saw endurance sports emerging. That's where we saw the large health clubs. We saw workout videos. You know, Richard Simmons, Jane Fonda. You guys know that Jane Fonda made more money off of her videos than she did from all of her movies combined. She really tapped into something, and it was enabled by technology. Those of us that are old enough in this room remember when PCs looked like that. Well, those were a huge breakthrough because prior to the emergence of the PC and the Apple II, you couldn't manage a large amount of information easily. And so the health club industry, the fitness industry, was predominantly very small gyms because the management of a gym meant managing a membership base, managing the payments of those bases. And the very first health club software applications that came out in the 80s were simply the system that managed the billing for the monthly membership of those health clubs. The second wave, now this is when Blake Beltram and I, the co-founders of Mindbody, when we came on the scene in the late 1990s. This is fueled by our generation, Generation X. And we have a slightly different characteristics than baby boomers. Tend to be more independent, tend to be more skeptical, less likely to all want to congregate in one big, huge club. You know what, we want kind of the special little experiences, things that are precisely tuned to what we want. That's also when the mind and body connection really emerged. And of course, that's why we named our company Mindbody, because we were aimed directly at this movement. You saw the emergence of boutique studios. You saw the emergence of day spas here in the late 90s. Enabled by some very important technology. Number one is a relational database. A relational database allowed you to manage hundreds or thousands of clients and members, match that to their attendance and what they're purchasing. You weren't just buying a monthly membership with unlimited use. You're buying a 10-class pass to go to yoga or Pilates or spinning. Also the internet, because these little businesses wanted to be able to connect, first of all, multiple locations, and secondly, they wanted to be able to connect with their clientele so that you could book classes and appointments. And this is really what fueled Mindbody and how we got out of the garage, was doing that. But then as we got into around 2012, there was a third wave, and this is the millennials coming of age. So it's similar to the second wave, but it's much larger. And this is where you see these boutique fitness and wellness brands really hit like third gear at this point. They're cranking. What you have is increased specialization, diversification. You now have emergence of the large-scale chains. So prior to this period, the biggest chains that we saw were 4, 5, 6 locations, Then you had the emergence of F45, Orange Theory Fitness, Bar 3, Bar Method, Pure Bar, Yoga Works, Core Power Yoga, building these very large networked organizations. And it was enabled by a new category of technology, most importantly, the smartphones, the mobile devices, that's what we call iOS and Android. Cloud technologies that made it so much easier and less costly to deliver functionality to these small business owners and people, and then connected devices that could measure the outcomes of our workout. We could actually connect our heart rate and our calorie burn to what's going on with the machine itself. And you know what these next generation studios look like in their activities. And so that third wave was in full force on March 8th when I finished my manuscript. And on March 13th, it all changed, okay? What is most surprising now is how resilient these businesses have been, and it's so incredible to see. We live now in a supply-constrained market where the people that hunger for these experiences, and they do hunger for face-to-face, it's not all going to go virtual, in fact, not by a long shot. They're actually putting themselves on wait lists to get into the limited class sizes and the limited number of offerings during the COVID-19 restrictions phase. So what's going to happen now? Well, we think that this fourth wave of wellness, which probably in a natural sense would have probably emerged in the late 2020s as Gen Z became a powerful force in the marketplace, And as new types of technologies came to bear, now we think there's a interruption period. And it's a cataclysm in the industry. It creates, of course, great pain for many existing business owners and their clientele. It also creates enormous opportunity. So what do we think we're going to see looking forward for the decade ahead? First of all, I want to tell you, I personally believe, after looking at all the numbers and all the data and talking with the experts, that we'll see more growth in the wellness industry in this decade ahead than we saw in the prior 2 decades since Blake Beltram and I were in that garage. This is an enormous wave that's coming ahead of us. It will mean less brick-and-mortar locations. There's simply, the mechanisms of how to do this, I think, will be less. However, the value of those face-to-face experiences, we believe, will be placed much higher. And if you wanted to kind of connect that, think about the value you place right now on going out to a nice dinner. What a special treat that is right now, isn't it? Have you noticed that when you get the bill at the end of the dinner, it's a little more than it was, probably a lot more. The restaurants, of course, had to raise their prices. I think all of the wellness industry needs to raise their prices of face-to-face experiences, because at the same time, they can deliver a lot of their value propositions through virtual methods. And those, of course, have a number of huge benefits. First of all, if I'm feeling body shame, I don't want to show up to that bar or yoga class while I look like this. And you ever heard anybody say, well, I need to lose weight before I go exercise, before I go to that gym or that studio or that club? So now there's this rich plethora of offerings that you can access right in the convenience and safety, emotional safety and physical safety of your own home. The cost of delivery is approximately 0. So the cost of these classes and these experiences is much lower. This is going to democratize wellness, which is so exciting, because I think the dirty little secret of the wellness industry is most of us have built businesses around serving affluent people. Of course we have, because the affluent people were the ones that lead every trend in society. But now that needs to democratize. It needs to go out to billions more people, and it will, thanks to the accelerated advent of virtual technologies. The enabling technologies, AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning. It's not scary. You're already using AI, ML right now, every single day. You don't even know it. AI, ML just simply makes the things that we use work better. So AI, ML enables better crafting of workouts, better connectivity between people who are looking for an experience and those who want it, the ability to vary pricing according to demand. Those things are all going to improve and are improving rapidly right now. The streaming video, of course, connected devices, what Peloton and Mir have brought into the industry now is going to be rapidly democratized. They're not going to own it all. Those devices necessary to deliver that kind of experience to somebody in their home is accessible to any small business owner. I'm talking about the device that you would hook up to any stationary indoor cycling bike or rower or treadmill, and the wearables that we can put on our arms that measure that. And all of that can be loaded to a cloud-based system, and you can have 100 people virtually in a class at the same time, essentially the Peloton experience. And so we think this is fabulously exciting, and businesses that leverage this have a huge future ahead of them. So the wellness businesses are going to flourish in this fourth wave. We think have a number of key characteristics. Number one, you must have a tightly defined target market. The number one mistake of any entrepreneur is to think I have to have a broad, addressable market. Early in the days of Mindbody, I talked to investors who just shot me down because says, what's the size of your TAM? And the first time I got asked, I didn't know what TAM was. I'm not sure. It's total addressable market, okay? It's a wonky phrase that investors use. And you know what? It's irrelevant, okay? What matters is that you've identified a segment of people, either demographically or geographically, that you can serve in an exceptional way, because you're going to design your products and your services and your experiences. Experience design is extremely important on precisely what those people need and want. And because you focus, you're going to do it better than anybody else. And most of these little local wellness businesses can flourish with only a few hundred clientele, loyalists, okay? Now you can have virtual businesses. You could assemble a few hundred people with the same needs and desires on 4 different continents and deliver that value to them. Hybrid delivery models. It's obvious in fitness, isn't it? I mean, we all understand how we can watch on-demand classes or streaming classes, how we can connect to our personal trainers through video. I challenge every business model represented here at this summit to come up with how you can do that in your business model. It's absolutely essential because we know one thing for sure, there will be the next SARS-CoV, right? There's going to be something else in our lifetime. Also, people's mindset is now thinking, okay, what happens if there's another pandemic? And that's going to change behaviors. And so if I'm going to buy a membership, I'm going to engage in your business, I want to know that you can connect with me and you can deliver value to me no matter where I am and no matter what the situation is. Well, this is just business 101, and number 4 is a scalable, repeatable business model. So if you're the world's best personal trainer or teacher or guru on this particular thing, you either are going to have to teach others how to do what you do really, really well so that you can be a Yoga Works or an Orange Theory of Fitness or Core Power or a Bar Method, or you're going to have a delivery model that means you're it. You're the talent, and you're the only person doing it, and you become one of those wellness and fitness stars that we all know about. But either way, it's got to be scalable and repeatable. And it all has to be built around an ethos, a set of meaningful and authentic core values. Because without that, you cannot build a team. Without that, you cannot inspire your clientele and your membership. Those values are absolutely essential. And you must have effective entrepreneurial leadership. Okay, the technology partners, these are the characteristics of an effective technology partner. Please don't get sucked into building things yourself. I've spent 20 years doing this, and we're still trying to get it right at Mindbody. It's really, really, really hard, okay? And what you need is a technology partner that, of course, is leveraging the latest technologies. That's cloud-based. At this point, pretty much anything you're going to encounter if you're shopping for software is going to be that. It's comprehensive. It actually solves a large portion of your problems. You're not having to cobble together 12 different solutions to make your business work. It's secure and dependable. It's still the wild, wild west out there. It's an arms race of security on the internet. Keeping your data secure, keeping your clientele's data secure, keeping their credit card secure is non-trivial. We spend tens of millions of dollars on that every year at Mindbody. Constantly evolving. The speed of evolution of technology is only getting faster. The amount of innovation we're going to see in the next 10 years will blow away what we saw in the last 10 years. And so you have to be betting on a technology partner that has the capital and the will and the intention and the proven record of actually staying abreast of technology, and it's built to last, because nothing's worse than you've built this great business model on some platform and then they just go away. These are the characteristics of meaningful core values. All of this has to be true, and it has to start with you as the founder. You have to represent the core values of your business. Okay, here's the successful entrepreneurial traits. It's going to be relevant to our next little segment, our pitch fest we're about to do. Authentic enthusiasm. Enthusiasm you hear the word passion. Well, passion doesn't have an essential good element to it. People commit crimes of passion. Enthusiasm means that it's an excitement and energy towards something that's a very positive outcome. And it isn't just you're like rah-rah excited and you don't really know what you're talking about. You actually have to know what you're talking about. So spend your time, do your time in the industry, working in the industry, get certified, get licensed, work behind the front desk, understand how these businesses operate. You're gonna get smacked down. If you're starting a business, you're gonna have times when it just feels hopeless. And you have to have this grit. Grit is an incredibly powerful thing. There's a great YouTube video about grit from Duckworth is her name. And watch that video. Agile thinking, this ability to zoom into details and to zoom back out again, like a telephoto lens, and see the big picture and then zoom back in. I've met entrepreneurs who get lost in both places. They're zoomed in so much they're missing what's going on around them, or they're zoomed out and talking about the excitement of the big wellness movement and not paying attention to the numbers in their business. There are failures on both ends of that. Learning how to leverage your head, your heart, and your gut. Gut is another way of saying intuition or subconscious, okay? Heart is the house of our desires. What do we want? And your head is where you do all the calculations. You gotta have all three of those working. Well, you better be adaptable, right? Has this year taught us that? And the world will throw things at us we can't possibly predict. And you have to be really willing to face those realities. So there it is. That's it is all in that book, and you've all got a copy of it. And with that, I think we can open up to some Q&A.
Rick, thank you so much Absolutely wonderful. We were taking so many notes, I lost track of the time. And there's Anna Bjurstrom bringing us our global colleagues. Good morning, Anna. Good afternoon in Sweden.
Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning.
Morning,
We have
Anna.
a question. Do you have a question there while we get our questions together here for Rick?
Sure. Regina Schneider asked, so it's moved to more technology, but are we really getting more healthy?
Well, I think we see a chasm around the world between the generally affluent and educated, who I believe have never been more healthy, and probably as a group can look forward to longer, healthier lives than ever before, and everybody else who, because of food, because of modern lifestyles, because of stress, are in worse shape than those cohorts would have been a generation ago. And I think that's the great challenge we face. The good news is, we that are on the avant-garde, we the ones that are pushing forward the concepts of wellness, are the ones that have the capacity to push those wellness practices into society so that more and more people can benefit, and also to advocate on a government level, because our governments, our insurance systems, our healthcare system, and our employers need to get behind this. And I think that's going to be a silver lining of COVID, because we've all seen firsthand the impact of COVID. It targets people that are in a poor state of wellness before they get infected. We all know this, right? And so we're talking about obesity and type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. That's the real epidemic of our modern life, laid bare by the COVID pandemic. And I think we have a great opportunity to address it.
Do we have a question in the room here? Yes, over there.
Hi, I'm Deborah with Well World TV. I work with a lot of kind of small, independent practitioners. Mm-hmm. You know, they're very small. How do they also use your advice, you know, from their level? Because they're not multi-unit, they're not going to franchise, they're not going to grow, they have their own business.
The same principles hold true. Everything we just talked about, including the scalable, repeatable delivery model. So that independent teacher, trainer, therapist is able now to connect to more people more effectively because of technology, and the technology is generally pretty cheap. It's really inexpensive. So you can run a really meaningful business from your home. You don't have to go out and sign that multi-year lease and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars building out that space. Others are going to do that. You don't have to. You can connect to people through technology, and it's easier. Some people think, well, I'm not a technologist, I'll never be able to handle this. The stuff is easier, so much easier to adapt and use than it was even 5 years ago.
Anna, have you got a question there?
I have so many questions. And looking, they're just booming in right now, and thank you for that. But some of them are about, Rick, you know that the biggest, usually the largest target market in gyms are the ones that actually see the gyms as their social life, that they go there because they want to be connected. And Mary Tabaki, our beloved Mary, said also, working out from home is just not okay because we need the connection. And one of the reasons she goes out and hikes is to get the connection, and with nature or with others. So do you think that those people will adhere to this whole technology boom?
Well, yes. I mean, what you just said, of course, is behind the main thesis that people's hunger for the face-to-face experiences, the hunger for the social connection that comes from these businesses is durable and will absolutely endure through this pandemic and for the foreseeable future. The technology means, though, that you can access that experience no matter where you are. So it's a yes and. I don't think Peloton's competing, you know, against SoulCycle, okay? Because it's two completely different experiences when you are there physically versus when you are remote. And the remote experiences can get better and more refined and more immersive. But I think it's in our lifetimes and probably in our children's lifetimes, that's not going to replace the face-to-face. In fact, what's interesting, if you look at the later stage millennials, the 20-somethings and the Gen Zs, they place a high priority on face-to-face experiences because their lives have been increasingly abstracted by technology.
Thank you so much. Is there another question? Yes, we have a question right down here. Yep, got it with the mic. Terrific.
Rick, I read your book and I thought it was brilliant. I especially loved the part about zooming in and zooming out. I've never thought about that phrase before, but I think it's very good. Here's my question. You talk a lot about going with your gut, using your brain, but going with your gut. Have you ever in your life had your gut say one thing that you absolutely
Yep.
knew for sure, and you went with it and it was wrong?
Oh, no. No, I honestly, no. The times, and I look back at the mistakes, and I've got a laundry list of mistakes. Most of the insights in this book, by the way, were learned the hard way. So whenever time I tell you, hey, I think you should do this, this, and this, it's probably because I went the other way and made a huge mistake. Every time, it was my head arguing with my gut. Whether it was hiring that person with the impressive resume who came with all the amazing references, and you meet with them, and there's just, something's just not quite there, and you can't put your finger on it. Whether it's, we're going to go with this direction and develop this thing in the product, and here's all the rational reasons why we need to do it, and here's what the customers are saying, and here's this major customer demanding and stamping their feet and saying, you must do this. And your gut's going, but that doesn't, what? How? It doesn't quite add up. So yeah, I have to say no, I cannot think of a case where my gut said, go do this, and it was an absolutely wrong decision.
Fantastic. Good for you. Trust your gut.
Well, our subconscious, it moves so much faster. And we all know the metaphor, right? We're 100,000 years ago, you're walking through the jungle and you hear a snapping twig. And that could either be the rabbit you're going to eat for dinner or the tiger that's going to eat you. And you have to, that decision-making process is so fast. Our conscious brains could not say, well, to see the tone of that and the sound was kind of like it was a heavy animal. You're already eaten, you're already dead, all right? And so, you ever driven home from work, and when you pull into the driveway, you don't even really remember the drive because your mind was thinking about things. Your conscious mind was thinking about things. Your subconscious was driving. Your subconscious sees the ball bouncing out into the street, realizes there's probably going to be a kid following it, and hits the brakes. That happens so fast. That's our gut. And so I think that one of the greatest insights that I've learned as I've gotten older and more experienced is to listen to my gut and get my head out of the way. The head's important. The head's got to do the math. The head's got to actually think it through. But the gut's going to help lead you in what direction, I think.
Well, if your gut's gotten you here, it's really a good model for success, for sure.
All right, thank you.
Anna, a question from all over the world?
Yes, Mia Kyriakos here asks, what about monetizing fitness and wellness access to nature? Seems like technology may be a competing factor, but do you still see this as an enabler here?
Well, so the question is, do I think the idea of access to nature...
Monetizing access to nature.
I think there's a business in there somewhere. I think the person asking the question must have a passion for that. They have authentic enthusiasm. If they know people that don't know how to access nature on their own and need that facilitation, then you've got the seeds of a business model. And who wouldn't be willing to pay you enough money so you can earn a living doing it? That's the essence of entrepreneurialism right there.
Someone's getting ready, I think, to pitch you something in the next segment. Is there another question in this room? Yes, we have a question right here.
Hello. I really was taken by the packaging of both emotional and physical safety that you referenced. COVID has disproportionately affected women. And my question to you is, do you have any insights as it relates to female-specific wellness?
Well, I can only speak from our own experiences. And so my wife and I, we sheltered with 3 daughters, ranging in age 16, 21, and 28, and saw a range of impacts. The 16-year-old, she is a classic extrovert, and I think it was especially hard on her. The isolation from her classmates, from her teammates, she's an athlete, have been really, really hard on Lainey. Madison, the middle child, she is an introvert. So our running joke, she's 21 years old, is that COVID basically was like a replay of most of her teen years. where she's just holed up in her room and whatever online forums she's in. And by the way, she decided to become a software engineer during COVID because she was on her computer so much. I'm not kidding, like that was actually happened. I think all of us struggled with our weight in the early weeks. I mean, the joke became the COVID-19 is what is the pounds you're putting on. I can't speak to for women versus men. I can imagine, classically we would say, well, women tend to be more social. Women, in the hunter-gatherer mindset, the women are the ones that are more social. But I also know for us guys, I know a lot of people that felt an enormous amount of isolation and depression even. I think it's really been hard on all of us. Do you see an opportunity there with the women that are getting impacted greatly? So there you go. You have a passion for this topic. You have an understanding for the target audience. And it sounds like you could build something around that.